Hi, and welcome to the Powered by Herts podcast. My name is Brie McDermott-King, and in this podcast, I get to speak to some of the University of Hertfordshire's most inspiring graduates about how they overcame their biggest challenges and how they achieved their professional success. I also get to help you get ahead in your own career by getting specialist advice from Herts experts. So in today's episode, I'm actually here at the University of Hertfordshire's Career and Employment Service, trying to figure out what employers look for in job interviews. Now, we all know that interviews are crucial to the recruitment process, but we also know that they can be very daunting experiences. Luckily, with practice, advice, insight, anyone can ace them. So I'm joined today by Herts graduate Manoj Samaratne, who's the lead engineer of durability and robustness at Jaguar Land Rover, and is also the car brand's campus lead here at the University of Hertfordshire. Thank you so much for joining me, Manoj. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm happy to be here and talk about my journey.
Yes, I'm sure it's going to inspire a lot of people because, wow, what a role. But I would like to start right at the beginning with your time at Herts. So what did you study? When did you graduate? And how was your time overall?
So I studied aerospace engineering in 2014 and graduated in 2018. I did the course with a placement here. My time here, I loved the hands-on experience that I had in my projects, the supportive lecturers, and also the community of friends that I built here as well. And the placement here was a key to propel my career, I'd say.
Yeah, so tell us more about that placement year then. Was it with Jaguar Land Rover or was it elsewhere?
No. So having been an international student, you have certain challenges, extra challenges. So the company that I did the placement was a different company, but what it did was put me in sort of the deep end, you know. So it was the first time they even had a placement student in that company. So they were figuring a lot of things out. So there were no processes in place, no procedures. So like figure it out. So you either break or you build yourself. So that was what. But you became a jack of all trades, having to do that and do this. So I was actually glad I was in a situation like that.
I can imagine. That must have been nice to balance with your degree, to have that hands-on experience. So, I mean, you've had several years in industry, and obviously we know now that you're the lead engineer for durability and robustness at Jaguar Land Rover. Incredible. But you also maintain the company's relationship with Herts as well. I just want to talk about both sides of the recruitment process, which you've obviously had insight to, right? So as a candidate, but also as an employee. Could you just tell us some like valuable advice or insights that students and graduates should know? Like what are people looking for? What are employers looking for that, candidates should be aware of?
I think in this day and age, it's really hard to, show what your unique skill set is. So I think learn the ability to sell yourself. So in your CV, in any kind of cover letter that you write, make yourself stand out. Make others know you're not just generic to the requirement. What makes you stand out? So this involves researching the company, even researching your interviewers and picking out projects that they did, because they'll always remember that those little things, and that really goes a long way.
That's so interesting. I really like that. Know who could potentially interview you and have that context maybe that you can throw in the interview just to differentiate yourself. That's really good advice. So could you talk us through the different types of job interviews that there are? Because I think a lot of people just think it can just be a standard conversation, but nowadays I know that there are so many different ways that you can interview.
Mm-hmm. So you'd say the initial interviews that you get will normally be like a phone call. It's really important to identify what the purpose of that is. So they are filtering candidates to try and get them to the next stage. So at this point, it's really important to throw out all the keywords on the job role, have your experience in hand that you can summarize quickly to someone, because now they're deciding, all right, is it worth sending this candidate CV to the recruiter or the manager to have a look at it. So it's really important to highlight, if the job role says certain phrases, certain words, to really bring it out, highlight it, and because they're not going to employ you, this person that you're calling. So that stage, I'd say the first stage. But once you're in the latter stages, then it's really, really important to have your portfolio and your experience in place. So, for example, what I did when I went to my interviews, having had no experience, but every little project, every little work that I did, I had a one-pager almost ready to say, this was the problem, this was what I did, this is how it went, and this was the aftermath of it. Whether it was good, bad, I had it all like in a one-page. Because sometimes some people are visual, they can visually see things, like you say a few words, they can't really understand. So some are visual learners. So having a little diagram of something you did, that really goes a long way, and that shows your preparation and your, I guess, enthusiasm as well, because you've taken the time, effort. And the final tip I'd say is competency interviews. Don't just say generic statements. Always relate it to a case. Tell me a time that you found something difficult. Relate it to something that you've done, and that just shows you have experience rather than generic words.
I love that you just spoke about all the different potential touch points that there are in interviews, because it's so true that, yes, you've got that point you made about language and the jargon. Every industry has its, jargon that shows that you kind of know what you're talking about. So that's so important. But I love that you mentioned the visual aid, because it's so true. These are people ultimately, and there's certain ways and preferences that they have to receive information. So just being mindful of that really does seem really inclusive. And I think that would be a great tip, actually, that I'm even going to make note of. So what would you say about mistakes that people make in interviews then? And what do you advise people do to avoid them?
I think the common mistakes, I guess a big one is not researching the role or the company well enough. Sometimes, it's a big company. There's so many factions and divisions. You're interviewing for a role in a particular sector, but you go in knowing some information about a company, but this particular role is for a completely different sector. So you're kind of there, even wondering in the interview, why are you here? So I think the biggest one is research the company. And I know when you're looking for jobs, you're looking to get ahead, but sometimes it's important to really, really try and think, why do I want this role? Because that helps you kind of find that inner motivation as well. If it's going out in the automotive industry and testing cars, and that'll show in your experience. You'll be in Formula Student, or you'll be working with cars already. You can't go into something that you're not passionate about. You can't ignite something that's not there. So. And people will pick that out in interviews easily. So that's the main thing. Research the company, know why you want the role, and first impressions count. That being dressed properly, being on time, and like I said, the preparation, even with those one pages, that just shows this person's here to kill it, not to coast through. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, to be fair, I've been in a few scenarios now where I've been fortunate enough to interview potential employees, for my company. And it really does show when someone's done good research. Even if, let's say, early on that it's not the right fit, you can really appreciate someone who's taken the time to research the company, the history, what you do, maybe your role. So I totally agree that research is a really powerful tip. What would you say then about confidence? Because I think that's a huge part, or a stumbling block even, for people when it comes to job interviews. It's just having that confidence before you even get there. So what would you say your personal journey has been with confidence, particularly with job interviews?
So I think confidence is one of those things where you can use it as a tool. if you're nervous, confident about something, that you got to think to yourself, what you care about it, you are, determined about something, so it's something true to you, so use it as a power almost. And sometimes in interviews, what I find important in the interview is the last section where they say, do you have any questions for us? Because yes, I want this role, but at the same time, I need to know this satisfies all my criteria. So I have few good questions to throw it back at them, Like one of the questions, this is what I always do. I ask the interviewers, tell me the most interesting thing you're working on right now, the interviewer. And sometimes they kind of go like, oh my God, what am I working on? What am I working on? Or tell me, what are your short-term and future expectations for me at this role? And now they really have to, break it down. And if they don't, then they're almost trying to fill that role to, because it's your development, your career. So use it as a positive. Use that nervousness, use that those butterflies in your stomach to really put forward what you want to get out of that role. That's what I'd say.
That is so key, because I think there is a common power dynamic in job interviews, but I feel like what you've just described kind of makes it an equal playing field. That yes, I want this job that you are offering, but also I bring value to your company. I want to show you that value. What would the exchange be? And I think when you look at it like that, it does make you a little bit more confident that you've got something to bring to the table as well. So now on to you and your career and what you do now. Could you tell us a bit more about your day-to-day? What does it entail?
So a durability and robustness engineer is quite a mouthful, the word, yeah? But what it entails is, in a nutshell, is I make sure the cars are reliable and tough before they're sent out to the world. So customers don't, complain, send it back to the dealership. Yeah. So this involves really testing the cars to the limit through a variety of tests. So Jaguar Land Rover is known for its off-road capability and also having the faster cars as well. So we've got requirements and test cases that covers all of it. So I would be traveling to different sites, off-road sites, muddy sites, sand sites, or even to places in Europe like high-speed tracks, ice tracks to make sure that things are doing as they should. But there is some danger involved because they are all prototype elements, but every risk is mitigated well. But the job involves talking to millions of people. If you imagine what goes into making a car, hundreds of people do bits on a car. So you find a particular issue. Sometimes it's not just a simple thing, I'll send it to person Y, and it's so many stakeholders are working to make sure that it's working the way it does. And that is fed through actual customer data through different markets. So it can, for example, someone in Dubai might not be the same thing as someone in Wales. So each set of requirements will are defined by like standards. Yeah. So you're doing a lot of research stuff when you have an issue. You're working with a lot of other engineers to try and understand the problem. Yeah. And if it's safety critical, if it's costing the customer or being at a disadvantage to the customer, and obviously reputation, we try and stop it before it's better we find million issues during this phase rather than out there after 5 years, Right. So it's a whole bunch of things.
Yeah, that sounds so fun. That sounds very scary for me, but that sounds really, really fun. Is that the role that you knew you wanted to do when you studied engineering? Did you even know it was a role?
The honest answer is no. I didn't even know such a thing existed. It's one of those things you see or hear about. Oh, I do, like racing drivers test cars, and it's like, okay, but such a world, this testing world, is what I think that time at my placement, really, that's where I was introduced to the testing world. I wasn't aware of such a thing existed, such a realm of, going from little tiny sensors, little modules, how they're working, to full-blown systems. So at my placement, I was working on little components, like a little arm moving back and forth, or these tiny modules, but the understanding of those devices, the circuits, the sensors, how it's pulling out data, and translating that to a whole system on a complicated system like a car, especially on extremely complicated systems like on Jaguar Land Rover stuff. Like you say, it goes, it can do high speeds on tracks, competing with like supercars, and the off-road stuff's really out there, competing with other cars. So it's a world that I didn't know that existed, but sometimes it comes to you through your motivation, and you're just constantly trying to learn things. That's the kind of person I am. I'm not the reason after graduating, I went back to the company that I did my placement with. So they've already said, come back. Even before I left, so I was already there. But after being in that role for a while, I realized I wanted something more. I wanted to explore other things out there, and that's because of my hunger to learn. I don't want to be stagnant. So searching, and obviously I interviewed for it. It went well. I didn't even know on the first day that's how it's going to be, but it turned out. So I think it's that constant drive to learn things, to pursue, get out of your comfort zone. I think that's important, because I'll be the first one in the room if they're talking about something. I'll be like, I don't know what that is. That's really good. Explain, teach me. Whereas sometimes it can be seen as a weakness, or you don't know that thing. But me being that, I'm constantly doing that, so I end up knowing actually a lot more than over time, if you cumulatively. So you just don't be afraid to not know things. Don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone and push for new experiences, not only work-wise, but dealing with people as well. I think that's a underrated skill, trying to work with people, different kinds of people.
For sure. And it sounds like you work with a load of different departments, I'm sure, and functions in your company. And I think that's a really nice circle back to job interviews, actually, and just the nerves and the lack of confidence. I think, your point about, not that initial interview, you had no idea you'd end up here. And I think people not having to think they have to have it all figured out, like just focus on the interview and that hurdle, get through that stage, and who knows what it could lead to. I think that's a really, really good point to make. So final piece of advice that you'd give to people actually considering a degree in engineering, what would that be?
I think find good role models, and have that perseverance. Sometimes you might not see the solution, but having that perseverance to keep at it until you figure it out. I think that's the core of it, engineering. There's a problem, you might not know it, but you work together. Because I think in the real world, what I didn't realize at the classes, it's not just a equation or a problem that you just do it, but it's working together with people, ultimately to resolve things. Because if you imagine, there are so many people that have different ways of doing things, but seeing the bigger picture, sometimes taking a step back. What do I want to accomplish here, rather than focusing on that little detail, so that you go down a rabbit hole. You don't want that. You want to see the bigger picture. So have those communication skills, and I'd say those role models, having those role models. And one thing I found is, in my career, you always have people that you impress, and they fight for you, or they cheer for you when you're not around. So champions, you generate champions almost through your good work, so that when you're not around, they will be like, oh, Manoj knows about that, or he's, if something's misleading, they'll protect you. So that happens in the background, and it's creating that environment as a person, that you're great to work with, enjoyable to be around, and you know your stuff. It's that whole package, I think, at the end of the day.
That's a really good point. And if I could add, I think that's a really good point to leave with students, because actually my interview for Sony, where I work, I didn't get it the first time round, but I really won over the talent acquisition team. So even though I didn't get that role, they were so invested in me that when another one came out, they reached out to me. And so I managed to get champions and still, got a huge win from that job interview, even though it wasn't the role. Yeah. So I think that's a great point. Getting your champions and those people who can advocate for you when you're not there, it's really important. Yeah. This has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for joining me. I know this isn't a job interview, but I can tell your passion is very, very palpable. So I'm so grateful. And I know so many people are going to be moved by this. So thank you.